Is your head also spinning with the wildly opposing reactions to Union Budget 2022? Now, some are saying it's a revolutionary break from the past, so that Vishwaguru, that's world leader India's history begins now. Or is it a wastebasket of words and jargon signifying little, as some others are saying? Now, if you turn to Twitter for an answer, your head will spin even more dizzily, because ruling party leaders are saying it will change the scale of India. By financial year 26, we shall be a $5 trillion economy. Opposition leaders are saying it's zero-sum, it's unabashedly capitalist, it's a Pegasus spin document. Pro-government industrialists and economists are saying stable, progressive, predictable, future-focused, inclusive. And then, finally, angry activists and economists are asking, why have you slashed subsidies? Why have you cut health outlay in a pandemic? Has the government given up on poor citizens, farmers, unemployed youth? Frankly, this whole confusion around Union Budget 2022 is quite legit, it's quite legitimate. Because we are a complex people and we've been brought up on a legacy of complex budget documents. The world first discovered our complexity in the early 1990s when India had just begun liberalizing her economy. In a very celebrated survey at that time, foreign investors were confounded by India's youth, who looked rebellious, but actually were what was termed then as closet conformists. They were aspirational about wealth, yet they hankered after government jobs. They loved foreign brands, yet they trusted the publicly owned Air India and MTNL. They were beginning to enjoy premarital sex in their early teens, yet they believed completely in marriages arranged by their parents. That's the time Indians finally discovered, and this was the first such, structured, empirically validated exercise, how astonishingly complex, how astonishingly Jekyll and Hyde is our character. And that reflects in India's mixed up budgets too. Therefore, there is very little wonder that we have this proclivity for complex, bichromatic budget documents, which are half socialist and half capitalist. For instance, we have a tax cut for rich companies together with an income transfer to poor farmers. And then we've also seen a health insurance scheme for urban poor, but along with that, we also give a land subsidy for profit-seeking corporate hospitals. We've seen that we've placed a price cap on single-screen cinema tickets, but at the same time, we've given incentives for constructing skyscrapers. You see, that's why we've come to expect shades of Dr. Jekyll in the benevolent and the pro-poor Vitt Mantri. That's the pro-poor part. And then we also have equal hues of Mr. Hyde in the avaricious and, pro-capitalist Madam Finance Minister. So, therefore, we had, over the years, begun to love our budgets because they mixed unbridled capitalism and bleeding heart socialism in a single, very dense, very indecipherable, a very bulky document. But Messrs. Modi and Sitaraman have smashed that model because on the first day of February, that's 2022, when Messrs. Modi and Sitaraman broke this very cozy consensus because unequivocally they plumped for growth over social redistribution. Unflinchingly, they said, we believe in trickle-down economics. That is, if the richer sectors of the economy prosper, the good times will slither down the crevices to help the poor. In fact, they wrote a unique budget which can be captured in a single line, and therefore you don't have much need to trudge through hundreds of sheets. And here's the single line: cut subsidies by 25%. Yes, cut subsidies by 25%. Increase capital expenditure by 25% and hit the eye-catching figure of $100 billion of public capex. Knowing this government's, it's always looking for grabbing headlines, I'm sure that this 7.5 lakh crore number of that 7.5 lakh crore figure of public capex, was inspired by its dollar equivalent of 100 billion US dollars. What a eye-catching number. And that's how stark and simple and unambiguous, also unapologetic, the budget has been about this facet. Now, the critics say, but isn't such a sharp break from the past a fit case of economic treason? Now, sure, it's perfectly okay for opponents to slam the government for a policy they disagree with. Now, equally, it's the government's prerogative to articulate a clear, even a heretical political philosophy that veers away from a past consensus. Therefore, this has made Union Budget 2022 a highly unusual document. It sort of fearlessly, in a sense, disregards a troubled legacy of failures in other economies that had chosen a growth trickle-down route in the past. And that will expose the Modi government to future political wounds. But for now, it's put an unambiguous, transparent doctrine of we are aiming for growth today, social welfare will follow. Now, if the Modi government fails, it will pay a big political price, and that will vindicate its opponents, but so be it. So, is this the beginning of history? Now, you will ask whether I believe in that theorem that this is such a decisive break from the past that this is the beginning of history. Honestly, history could possibly be rewritten by just 5 crucial data points that I would focus on, and I would therefore not get distracted or trapped in the welter of rhetorical numbers that populate the budget. Now, the first one is record buoyancy in gross tax revenues. We've collected about 3 lakh crore more than we had estimated. There is also a record buoyancy in annual exports, which could cross $650 billion for merchandise plus services. We also are sitting on record amounts of foreign exchange reserves, nearly $650 billion. We are also seeing record levels of stock market capitalization at about $3 trillion, and that will trigger productive capital formation across sectors. Finally, we also have a record of privatization in this current financial year, even though, ironically, the finance minister eschewed. She didn't even come near the P word, and she also missed her target by a record amount. Yet, the fact that Air India's sale was celebrated, yet the fact that Neelachal Ispat was quietly sold, both to the Tatas, are landmark events in this, otherwise very comatose segment of our political economy, and this gives cause for guarded optimism. Now, beyond these 5 data points, India's destiny as a potential Vishwaguru, world leader, which is our ambition, that lies outside the union budget. It principally devolves on 3 other pillars. 1, India must create a modern welfare state which provides quality education, healthcare, and social safety nets for its vulnerable people. Second, India must open up to the world by lowering tariffs, by getting integrated into global supply chains, and having the wherewithal to compete with foreign giants. Unfortunately, what this government has done is by erecting higher tariff walls, by creating production-linked incentives or subsidies for trying to have these homegrown champions, which will artificially they will thrive within protected boundaries. Now, this means we are actually going in the opposite direction. Finally, India must ruthlessly cleanse the regulatory cholesterol. This one is really important. There's so much regulatory cholesterol that has become the fountainhead of corruption, and it has become the killer of private initiative and productivity. Let us vow, for instance, that GST inspectors cannot simply walk in and seize company funds as today they are permitted to do. We should also see that decades-old tax cases are not just whimsically reopened and hapless citizens, corporate as well as individual citizens, are prosecuted. We must also see that victims of very egregious state actions, companies like Vodafone, Ken, Devas, Amazon, these are just a few examples. There are many, many others. We must see that they are not denied arbitral awards that they win in overseas courts. We must also see that our courts do not allow the arrest of, as has happened in the past, of a retired bank chairman or the prosecution of a former disinvestment minister for bona fide actions that were taken decades back, years back. These are just a few examples that I've quoted to you. There are just so many of them which show how much regulatory cholesterol there is in our system. Therefore, my dear viewer, in essence, the poet said, the writer said, Hanus Dilli Durast, means Delhi is very far away. Therefore, we must understand that we are nowhere near becoming a Vishwaguru. We are nowhere near becoming a world leader unless we can double down on all of the things that I've spoken about in this piece. और अगर यही विचार जो मैंने अभी आपके सामने रखे अंग्रेजी में आप हिंदी में सुनना चाहते हैं तो आप हमारी हिंदी क्विंट की यूट्यूब चैनल पे जाइए और यही वीडियो आपको हिंदी में भी मिलेगा. एंड ऑफ कोर्स यू मस्ट नॉट फॉरगेट टू लाइक, शेयर एंड सब्सक्राइब टू आवर यूट्यूब चैनल राइट नाउ.